weekly podcast. Once again, this is our weekly podcast, and um, we're um, we're right at the top of the hour. So it's so good to see you all who joined us today. Thank you very much for being here. Um, and we are still waiting for Dr. Wayne Durbin. Uh, there's a good chance that Wayne won't make it today because he's at the conference at the Brownsfield conference. But if he joins, it'll be really fun because you'll get to see the Brownfield event. But if not, we'll show you we'll show you a replay that we did recently. So that will be also fun. If you haven't, if you have seen the webinar, you'll surely enjoy this the second time. And if you haven't seen this, then this is going to be definitely fun for you. So we'll give it a few minutes to see if Wayne joins, if he is uh, joining or not. So if he doesn't, in a few minutes, show you a replay. In few minutes, we're going to show you a replay video. So people who are here, type in a 1 if you can hear me. I see a couple of Levi others, Levi, note taker, and Yashambel, note taker, and Stephen in here. So please type in where you at if you would. Let us know. Let us know if you can hear me into the chat box while I queue up the video for us today in a second. So the video is coming up. So Steven says yes. All right. Okay, so we're getting started with the video.
Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? We are just getting started with Troy Hinkie. We just talked a little bit about where we are in the world, both of us, and we'll now get going. We sure appreciate you coming, and please ask questions. This is going to be an interview format. I'm just going to, you know what? I actually was talking through my phone, but I switched to my computer audio because I was having trouble with it. I don't need that, so I will put that aside. I usually use the phone to connect to these, which a lot of people don't even know you could do. So you can actually be on these webinars without having any video and just come in on audio. I do the audio on the phone mainly because I have a satellite internet system, and it's delayed a little, although this is buffered really well. At least I see my lips moving perfectly with my voice, and sometimes the sound quality isn't as good, especially when I have the webcam on. So anyway, but I'm not using it, so I don't need it. Please ask questions. There's a little question box on the right-hand side of your screen that you can just put questions in. You may not ask them as they come up. Mark is going to help us, and Arib both are going to help us sort of monitor those and make us aware of them. We're probably not going to be looking at the question box. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. A couple of announcements before we get going here. One, we have another webinar this week on Friday. So if you want, you could attend that, and it's at 3 o'clock Mountain Time. So it'd be the same time as this one, wherever you are in the world. So that you should actually already have an invitation for that, so you can sign up. You'll get another one as an email soon. And secondly, I've been putting this in some of our emails. We're looking for a marketing director, which is someone that will help us with live events here at our site in Colorado, northern Colorado. We are in a very beautiful place, by the way. That person could either live here on site with us, or could be in the local area and off site, or could be completely remote. You would probably have to travel some for some of our events, but mainly it's finding speakers, getting our all the food organized. It's really sort of a really broad-based, not a lot of experience needed, but we're open to either any of you, or if you have friends that are interested in it. Last announcement is we have something that for years a lot of our members have not known about. We're now going to make it a lot more well known. We've got plans that are literally step by step. There's images in them. We're actually going to add video to it also, to build what we call a pallet shed that is big enough for livestock, horses, cattle, you name it. It's marginally a little short for a horse, but they would have to have they'd have to be at an angle, but horses like getting in stalls and angles anyway. And we only have that sort of advertised on one of our more obscure websites. We get requests for it almost daily, and we're going to start making that more available. We used to give it away free. We're going to charge $5 for it, just because we've got time and effort in the video that we're doing and other things. But that's something that is an announcement, a new one too. So several opportunities to make some money, new webinars, as well as something you could do that would. So by the way, that pallet, we've got 40 of them here at our farm, and they take about 4 hours to build if you have no building skills. If you've got some building skills, you can do it faster. You could do it with a handsaw. I would recommend some kind of an electric saw, but again, everything is shown as to what's needed. A lot of the materials you can get for free. So anyway, and I love this slide because it's a good start for us to start to ask Troy some questions. He's going to talk to us today about compost tea and what he does to make it, and different things, I'm sure, wide variety of things. Again, we're going to talk to him about his life a little bit and what he's up to. He told us he's living outside of Philadelphia. And anyway, let's go ahead and start with that. Troy, you said you moved to where you're at now for a variety of reasons. And do you have any ongoing relationships with Rodale? Does any of that continue?
No, I haven't had any continuing relationship with Rodale. I was actually just mentioning before we got on here that I had emailed a lady recently who's in the research department there. She had done some compost extract research and printed a few papers in the past on compost extract, specifically with nematodes, and I can't think of the other one offhand. But I reached out to her just to let her know I was back in the area and to see if she'd be interested in doing any type of compost extract research this summer or in the future.
Cool. Let's start with a little bit, what generated your interest in compost teas? Well, let's
Well,
back up even a step, because I know people that will ask this. What is a compost tea? How can I drink it? And can I put alcohol in it? And does it go good with my breakfast, or how does that work?
that's a good question, and it's a question I often get asked. Compost tea is basically a liquid form of compost, and it's going to provide plants and soils with specifically the microorganisms that plants and soils need, that are then going to help to provide them in turn with nutrients and minerals that the plants and soils need. And I have had someone who purchased compost tea that did not realize that it was something you didn't drink and had drank it shortly afterwards. But yeah, to let you know how I got started doing this, I grew up really into nature, really into recycling and environmentalism and things like that. I went back to school at the age of, 29, and went to what's used to be called the Maharishi University of Management in Fairfield, Iowa. And I was going for organic food production and renewable energies. And through that, I signed up with a class in the springtime with Dr. Elaine Ingham that was in their May block. That college does the block system where you take one class at a time and you have it for 28 days and then move on to another class. And so for the May block, I had signed up for this Living Soils class with Dr. Elaine Ingham, not having any idea who she was or her prominence or anything. And through that class, I just had an aha moment and knew that was exactly what I wanted to pursue and do in the future. But I lacked any microscope experience other than maybe in biology in high school, using a microscope for a couple days. And so I wanted to apprentice on the microscope, and I specifically wanted to apprentice with Elaine. I didn't want to learn from anyone who she had taught, but from her directly. And that year, she had just become the chief research scientist at the Rodale Institute and was going to be there for the complete month of July. And so I basically kind of dropped everything that I was doing, and I went to the Rodale Institute for the month of July that year to apprentice with her. And basically everything, I've had all kinds of serendipitous moments since then that's been tied to that whole experience with school and everything. But Rodale liked me a lot. They liked my work ethic, and they wanted to bring me on to work alongside Elaine. And someone there found a compost grant, and within a couple months of me leaving to do apprentice on the microscope with her, I came on board to work in the research department with Elaine, kind of like her right-hand man, doing compost and compost tea research on large and small scales. So that's how it all began. And I just consider myself extremely fortunate to this day to have been able to start, at such a prestigious place as the Rodale Institute with my composting career.
Very cool. So earlier, as we were getting started, I was telling Troy that I have some experience with very early founders of Rodale. And Elaine is a really good friend. Elaine has done a number of webinars with us, and I came very close to becoming the CEO of Soil Food Web, and we just couldn't put everything together. And this is about a year ago, actually.
Oh wow!
And just didn't end up doing it. So again, she's probably, well, no, not probably. She is absolutely our most popular speaker. We do an Elaine Ingham webinar and we sell out. You can only have 1,000 people on a GoToWebinar, and every time we've had Elaine on, we get more than 1,000. We have people waiting to get on. So anyway.
Yes, I can imagine.
And I come from the opposite direction as you. I'm a professional microscopist. And so my PhD is in toxicology and aquatic. It's actually water related, but I studied microorganisms in benthic environments, which is the soils under the water. And so I used a scanning electron microscope, a transmission electron microscope, every kind of light microscope you can imagine. And then my wife is also a microscopist. So, and we were able to take with us from one of our businesses that we founded and directed at the time, I have no idea what it's worth today. It would be very difficult to ever sell it. But at that time, a $20,000 Olympus combination phase contrast and polarizing microscope, so you could switch with the different optics for it. But yeah, unbelievable optics.
Nice.
Really a fun scope. Anyway, we have some commonalities there. So
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably had
let's-
a lot to talk about with Elaine.
Oh yeah, we did. And my daughter just moved about a year and a half ago to Eugene, so it's not immediately adjacent to where she is, but very close. So,
Yeah.
So let's talk now about making compost tea, and specifically, really how you do it, and how you at least talk about it when you're talking with others, and then we'll go back to some other more personal questions later, but let's just get right into the compost tea now, and tell us about the process for making it.
Yeah, sure. So I make my own. Recently have just been making my own brewers at home. I don't use like what's pictured here. I would love to have something like that, but I just haven't. I just use a very inexpensive do-it-yourself homemade brewer that I made myself, which is the brew barrel, the blue brew barrel that you saw a few minutes ago. No matter what size of container I'm using, whether it's 500 or 5 gallons, 50 gallons, or 500 gallons, I will get my water out ahead of time and fill the brewer to let the water acclimate and get to the ambient temperature of what it's going to be applied to. So generally, if you're getting water out, if it's in the summertime, if you're getting water out of your hose, just from the house water, it's going to be colder, so you have to let it get up to temperature. So yeah, you want to let the water get up to ambient temperature, and then also by letting it sit out longer, you're going to let any chlorine or chloramine in there off gas. You can reduce the time that you're doing that by adding an air pump to it and pumping air into there to help off gas more chlorine and chloramine. And then I'm taking my compost that I make at home, and I've got a brew bag, and putting compost into a brew bag and agitating that in water for a certain length of time. And it depends on the ambient temperature outside. When it's colder outside, it takes longer to brew compost tea than in the summertime or warmer months. There's gonna, just due to the oxygen that's available and the activity level of the microorganisms, that's why when it's colder out, colder ambient temperatures outside, it's going to take longer to reach what I call peak population in the compost tea. So when you put compost in a mesh bag and put it in water, you're extracting so many microorganisms off the surfaces of that compost or that organic matter in your water into the water. So say, just for an easy number, we've got 1,000 microorganisms that are on the surfaces of the compost that you're putting in the water. You're extracting those 1,000 microorganisms, and you're adding foods to the compost tea and letting it brew, and you're trying to reach a peak population of, say, 10 times that or 100 times that. At a certain point, the organisms are going to have used up the food, all the food and the oxygen, and you're going to start to have anaerobic, especially bacteria, start to take over. And you'll, if you were to graph the numbers of the population of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, especially bacteria and protozoa, which we can get into more the details of these characters in a minute if you have questions about them. But we're especially increasing the populations of those. And then if you were to graph it, the population would continue to go steadily up. And then at a certain point, there's a quick drop off where things start to go anaerobic, and at a rather quick pace after that, the compost tea brew is going to have more anaerobic microorganisms than aerobic or beneficial microorganisms. So I'm trying to get to that peak population. And so that's what is dependent on the time and temperature outside. So I brew for, in the summertime, 12 to 24 hours. In the early spring, like March or April, I'm brewing for even up to 2.5, 3 days, generally not that long, but 2.5 days. And then I will empty my compost tea out of the brewer. I like to put it through a second strainer bag. So there's going to be a good amount of sediment that's in the compost tea at that point that you want to strain out. If you're using a watering can or something with large holes or large output, you wouldn't really necessarily have to worry about that much sediment in the water, but I'm using a sprayer generally. And so I'm trying to reduce the amount of sediment that's going to be in the water that could clog up my sprayer. Yeah, and then with compost tea, I'm applying it. We were at Rodale, we were doing research at 5 gallons per acre, which is very minimal. If you can think of having 5-gallon containers out over an acre, that's it's really not very much. That's what we did research with. I generally spray 10 to 20 gallons per acre, which still isn't much. So I'm putting that 10 to 20 gallons of compost tea into water, and that water is acting as a carrier, just simply to help to get that amount of compost tea out over a whole acre or whatever size land that I'm spraying it or applying it to. So you can dilute the compost tea down pretty much however much you need or not at all, just depending on what you're applying it to and how you're applying it. What other questions do you have?
Yeah, I'm sure that the audience has got a bunch of them, but I'm going to keep going here for a second. On one of the slides there, it talked about cost. We'll get back to that later. But when you spray it, whether you're diluting it with water or not, are you spraying it on the plant leaf surfaces and directly, or onto soils around? And how do you choose the best timing, or do you do it multiple times during a growing season?
Good questions. So when I'm going out, I advertise myself as spraying landscapes, lawns, gardens, or farms. And when I'm going out, I'm spraying compost tea on the foliage of plants or trees, as well as doing a soil soak around the root zone. So if this is my plant, I'll come in and spray all around here, and then I'll hold my hose down to the root zone around the root zone of the plant and make sure and soak that real well, and then just move from plant to plant. Or on a lawn, I'll just make sure and spread it evenly. And then I also have a root injector, so I have the capability of injecting compost tea into root zones of trees and larger plants. And then, let's see, what was the second part of your question?
No, I think you got it. I was said I'll ask a little later about costs. You got money for a grant at Rodale way back. how has compost tea been studied since that time to where there's been results about its effectiveness in increasing plant fertility or increasing soil microbes? And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. That's probably easier. But because my sense tells me, because I've known about soil composting and have done it myself for at least 30 years, and yet I don't see around me, and I'm a full-time farmer, and I hang with full-time farmers, and most of them are non-regenerative. They're industrial farmers, I call them. They're good. They're not bad people, but they're doing bad things.
Yeah.
And I'm an evangelist, so they know that, and some of them choose not to be around me, and others put up with me. But I haven't seen a huge movement towards use of more compost tea. So there's a two-part question there. One is part of the reason for that because it hasn't had a lot of research done, and other than that, very early. And the second part is, am I right or wrong? Are you seeing, because you live with it, it's your total passion. Are you seeing more usage than what I'm seeing?
What I have noticed, no, I can't say that I'm probably noticing anything more than what you're seeing. There's not a lot of research, like university research or anything like that, just mainly backyard scientists and things like that. The most recent, or I should say, the research that I am aware of that is the most recent is Dr. David Johnson and the Johnson Sioux bioreactor. The compost that he's making, and he's also making extracts with that, and he's doing research with I thought he's in Arizona, but he's doing research with University of California, Chico, or maybe he's just doing classes there, or that's where his composting thing's through. But I was thinking that he was in Arizona. But yeah, Dr. David Johnson has done different published research recently. What I notice from my following and from seeing people that Elaine have worked with is that most people that are interested in this type of thing are in other parts of the world where they're not having big pharma cram down their throat pretty much on a constant basis, or people who don't have access to those chemicals, and are basically kind of fending for themselves, trying to find natural fertility and ways to fertilize their plants that they can provide on the farm or just for their own needs. So yeah, I haven't, other than mentioning those ones that her name's, I'll put this, well, I'll cover up her email and everything. You can do a Google search for her name, Dr. Gladys Zanatti at Rodale. She's done so. She has one published paper that I was able to Google and find some information on, the one that I was talking about regarding nematodes. But other than that, yeah, it's really hard to find any recent research on compost or compost extract. I don't know why. I know the USDA organic regulations have become more lenient when it comes to things with compost tea. Like they used to strictly only allow compost extract, and now they've been allowing tea that, if you follow the 90-120 rule, like not applying it on foliage of plants, above ground plants for 120 days or root plants for 90 days. I might be having that mixed up. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I don't, it's difficult.
So let's go to soil fertility here, which is something you, when we were talking about microscopy, it's one of the things that you're measuring there. And we just saw a root mass, which was clearly very had a high level of soil fertility in it. It's really easy, by the way, to determine by visual, by your eyes, sort of non-healthy soil from healthy soil.
Yeah. I could talk about this experiment. This is pretty neat experiment if you want me to talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
While I was at Rodale, I wasn't specifically involved with this, but I was there seeing it all happen, and I was alongside the microscope analysis that was taken and everything like that. This was a 6-week experiment where they took you can see in the background there are 4 foot by 8 foot raised beds, and they filled them with manufactured soil, or what's the other word for it? It's basically compost and sand and other things mixed together, giving you like the perfect growing medium that people use to fill in, well, people that have money that are purchasing or building a new home and needing to replace topsoil, whatever in their lawn, they'll use this this type of soil. So it's an ideal growing condition. That's why you got such great results. But it does show the difference between what can happen. So that picture that you're showing right now is a picture that I took of a picture on my blueberry. That's why it's so fuzzy and not that great. But those roots right there are 20 to 22 inches long. And that's the one that I was holding. And a lot of the soil aggregates had broken off of the roots, and you can really clearly see the roots there, where in the other picture, you can see the difference between compost tea and conventional. So with the experiment, there were 6 raised beds, 6 4 by 8 raised beds, and 3 of the beds got chemical applications. I believe it was once a week, and same as like when you hire Scott's or ChemLawn or whatever to come to your house, they were applying nitrogen fertilizer to the grass there. And then the other 3 beds got nothing but compost tea. And it was only a 6-week experiment, which is not much time in a plant's life and not a long time to get a lot of root growth generally. But in only 6 weeks, we were able to get, or they were able to get 20 to 22 inch long roots and all that aggregation in the soil that you can see on the roots there. With compost tea, whereas the side, the next to it version was chemical applications. Because those plants were getting chemicals and all the nutrients that they needed through the chemicals, they really didn't need to put on much root growth. So the sod that had the chemicals applied to it, you could roll most of it you could roll up like the day that they applied it, and unrolled it, you could roll it right back up and take it away. It was insane. Yeah.
And did the researcher there attempt to publish anything from that?
That was an experiment that Elaine put together with James, well, the late James Satillo from Ecological Landscape Management, I believe is the name of his company, out of New York State. And I believe that the intention was to publish research from that, but Elaine had a whole lot of projects going on at the same time there that she was wanting to do and publish research for, that there was so much happening that I think a lot of it just kind of got swept under the table and didn't get published or whatever.
Yeah. So let's go to the microorganisms. As you would look at whatever you look at, and I'll let you tell us that in a second, between those two batches, the soil that had it had compost exclusively versus it had industrial fertilization. What would you see different? What would be the difference in soil fertility? And how would you identify that?
Well, with the experiment that you were just talking about there, interestingly enough, it was expected to see the characters of the soil food web added through the compost tea. So we expected to see bacteria, possibly fungi, and then protozoa and nematodes. And then with the chemical applications, the expected result was that we basically have just bacteria in there. And because it was such a short experiment, they were basically seeing still nothing but bacteria with just a little bit of protozoa in the compost tea applications. It was a blind study, so when they were doing the microscope analysis, the individuals involved didn't know the sample that they were looking at. They were just sampling it and giving the results. But yeah, it ended up that they were very similar looking. For me, generally, when I'm working with a soil, like in Nashville, we'll have I just moved here from the Nashville area. That's why I mentioned Nashville. I was working, there was a lot of new homes that were being built, and that area has a very high clay content in their soil. So there's easily compacted soil. They're building houses. They're bringing heavy machinery in to build the house. They're removing the topsoil and running heavy machinery on it. So they're getting a lot of compaction. So like when I would look at a soil from that, you're basically just have bacteria, not really much fungi or any other organisms. And then after, depending on the yard, but generally a few applications, then I was able to get higher organisms, higher trophic levels of organisms in there. So getting more protozoa and predators that are going to eat bacteria and fungi.
When you were saying that, Marie was showing that one slide, that was the real obvious organism was some kind of a arthropod, and I would assume more arthropods, you see a much healthier soil because they need to have protozoans and fungi, nematodes to eat. So that's their food.
Yeah, it's not often that I see arthropods, so it's really cool when I do get to see an arthropod, but you're absolutely correct. They're relying on lower organisms that is part of their diet. So when they're moving through the soil, arthropods such as this or earthworms and things like that, they are eating protozoa, but through that function, they're also chewing on soil or organic matter, I should say, in the soil and breaking that organic matter down into smaller pieces, which is going to increase the surface area of it, and which is going to allow more bacteria and fungi to come along on the surfaces of those and break them down even farther. So these are going to be shredders that are going to make soil organic matter even smaller while they're consuming protozoa and possibly fungi as well.
Right. So in your current farming efforts, whether they be just your own backyard, or you mentioned that you came there and was able to get a job with an organic farm, how much are you able to use compost tea? Or is that still a selling situation, at least at the commercial level?
Well, one of the main reasons that I came on with the organic farm that I had been this past year, I met this woman who she's had an organic farm for like 15 years. There's one of the most recent examples of using compost tea on garlic, dipping it before I planted it. I met this woman. I was helping Elaine to teach a class at Rodale, soil food web class, and this woman was attending that. And we've just kind of kept talking, even though I wasn't living here. We've talked through Facebook or phone call every few years or whatever, and just kept in touch. And so she's been a big fan of Elaine's, and Elaine actually had gone out to her farm to help her with some things out there. But so she's totally on board with using compost extract and compost teas. It's Ole Valley Organics. She was all about incorporating compost tea or extract as much as I could on the farm. So yeah, that picture just a few minutes ago, just this past fall, we were planting. Their main crops are asparagus, garlic, strawberries. I'm missing one, but mainly garlic. So I had soaked all of the garlic cloves for 5 to 10 minutes before planting in a compost extract, and then went out and planted them. And generally, we're getting like 6 to 8 roots initially in the first couple weeks after planting cloves. If you just happen to, we would come in to do other things and happen to pop up a bulb, and you just checking on it, you can see that there's like 6 to 8 roots. After planting this garlic and having soaked it in compost extract, I was in the bed doing something. I don't know if I was putting mulch layer down or something like that, and I happened to kick up a few bulbs, and it wasn't just a freak accident that a few of them were like that. I mean, they were all showing the similar results, where I was counting like 25 to 30 root hairs on that garlic clove there. So incorporating biology as soon as possible on seeds or plants is highly beneficial.
Yeah, you can see the number of roots there is in that 20 range, not 4 or 5. All right. What do you see yourself doing 10 years from now?
Did you say 10 years from now?
5 to 10, let's say. I don't want it to be short term, so out into the future.
Yeah. Well, I just purchased a worm trommel, so for the past 4 years now, I've been trying to get vermicomposting going on a larger scale as part of my business. And I was gifted a 5 foot by 16 foot flow through reactor that's a worm compost system. And I've been waiting for a place to be able to get that set up, and not having a place to set it up. That's the trommel, not the flow through system. That's the trommel that I recently purchased, but waiting for the right time or right place and not been able to make it happen. So I've just decided to start as small as I need to get things going and see how quick it grows. But I do a lot of educational outreach. So I'd really like to have possibly something published by then on compost and microscopy or something like that, and doing much more consulting on soils and working with growers. But I really enjoy, doing educational outreach and presentations and speaking like that. I was going to mention, the organic farm didn't quite work out the way things were supposed to plan, the way life does. And I recently have come on board with the Urban Worm Company. It's a gentleman that lives nearby here who he is mainly what's mainly important to him is getting information out there for households and individuals to be composting at home, especially using worms, obviously. And so he sells a few products. The Urban Worm Bag is one of them, but I'm going to be helping to do a lot of written content for him, and we're going to be putting out a lot more content on pretty much what I do now, but he's a lot more proficient at making things look pretty. I've got the knowledge and the experience of doing this stuff. I just don't always make it look pretty for Instagram and things like that. So working together as a team, we should be able to put out some pretty cool content of educational stuff.
Cool. Tell us a little bit about your youth. Were you encouraged by either family or teachers or just others, friends and such, to follow your love of nature that you described?
I would, well, my parents have always taken me hiking, and I can look back at it as a kid and remember being dragged around to places like that. Not that they're huge like environmental people or anything, but they do enjoy nature a lot. So I have gotten my love of nature from my family. And then just wanted to follow my bliss and follow my passion once that hit 10 years ago or whatever.
Is Elaine still a mentor and somebody that you try to gain information from whenever you can? And then also, who else might be involved? I talked about there's Dave Johnson for one, and so anyway, two-part question: is Elaine in that range, and then is there somebody else?
I haven't talked to Elaine since I left Rodale, strictly because we both are busy, and I just never had reached out to her since then. So yeah, I haven't really talked to Elaine. Another person that I would say is a mentor to me is Rhonda Sherman from North Carolina State University. She holds the Vermiculture Conference every year at North Carolina State, and just wrote the book a few years ago, The Worm Farmer's Handbook. So she's big into, well, she's known for worm composting, but she's big into a lot of organics, recycling, waste reduction, and things like that. That's what she's done at North Carolina State. Pretty much those two people. I'm into mycology stuff as well, so I like Trad Cotter a lot. I really look up to him. I see him a lot at conferences and stuff, and we chat. We're kind of buddies in a way. I don't know. Maybe he won't call me a friend, but I really look up to him. I really respect his work. Paul Stamets, obviously, but I really enjoy Trad. I really enjoy listening to Trad and what he does with mushrooms and fungi, and his creative way of using fungi and getting it out into the world. Trad Cotter is in South Carolina and has my Mushroom Mountain for anyone who might be interested in checking that out.
Okay.
Other than that, I can't think of anyone else offhand.
How about a couple of little sort of interesting questions? What's something you've read recently that's longer than a tweet? Okay, so it's a blog article at least that long, and maybe it's a book, or maybe it's even longer, that you would recommend to anyone. And it doesn't have to be, by the way, in soil fertility. You could. I saw had a little interest in sci-fi because of a video that Reed played. Anyway, by the way, Could I see, do you know who the either secondary or primary author of Soil Biology Primer is?
No. I mean, the USDA is whoever at the USDA, whenever it was put together, it's been a while. I don't know.
I think
I don't even know the
I
other.
think it's
Who
I
is
think
the
one of the
there?
authors.
Clive Edwards
ahead.
might be the worm author. There's a section on worms, but I can't think of the other authors who are on there. Let's see.
One of the authors is Lance Prescott, who was a college professor with me, and
Okay.
wrote also the textbook Soil Biology that we use probably more often in a undergraduate soil biology course than any other. And he just happened to be a contemporary of mine. And I think he was at least one of the compiling authors of the Soil Biology Primer too. Anyway, that's just an aside. But
I know I've seen that name in there. I've currently got a book by my bedside that I can't think of the name of it. I can run and grab it. It's like 10 seconds away if you want me to. Otherwise, it's a book.
I'll go ahead and get it.
I'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. There's a bunch of you out there and not a lot of questions. Put them in. I'm going to start asking questions from the audience in about 5 minutes or less. And put some in.
It's more of a fun book, but there's a lot of just little actual research stuff in there. The Earth moved.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Where's the author there? Okay, Amy Stewart. Got it. Okay.
She did Wicked Plants, if you've heard of that book. I think that was more well known.
Yeah, and she's a New York Times bestseller because that means it's something more fun too, which is kind of cool.
It's fun, yeah. I've actually been through reading that. I'll like get names of people who've done worm research and like look up those people and like find out a bunch of other cool stuff.
Cool. What's a tool that sometime in the last 6 months that you just started to use that is one you'd recommend to others? And it could be a physical tool, it could be an internet related tool, you name it. And it, again, doesn't have to have anything to do with soil fertility.
Right.
Just our audience loves to hear about things they might be able to
That's an
check out
interesting
themselves.
question. That's an interesting question. I would, I'm not a tech person at all, but there's so many apps on your phone that like provide so much help to me. I was trying to think of something on there. That's what I was starting to look for. I honestly can't think of anything that I've used in the past that's new to me.
That's not unusual. So of the 1,000+ people I've asked this question, maybe 300 or 400 of them had the same answer. I don't know. I can't think of one. But boy, I've had a bunch that have had really cool things. Now this is one that's kind of interesting, but tell us about something, and you can be very broad or you can be very specific, and you don't have to name any names, but that happened in your life that at the time seemed incredibly negative, that now you look back on it and it actually was very positive.
Well, the biggest thing that comes to mind, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I went through some pretty bad times with that, to be honest with you. I'm a much better person because I went through that horrible crap. I mean, not that I was a bad, I shouldn't say I'm a better person. The good part of me comes out a lot more, I should say. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely does. And you're not the only one that has had that as their experience. So, by the way, I think I saw an alpaca in a previous
There was an
slide
alpaca.
here.
Yep.
That's
I had a country neighbor up the road. It just so happened that she was a lady who worked at my daughter's school that lived I moved way out into the country, and she just happened to live like a mile away. She had alpacas, and they poop. When alpacas poop as a herd, they poop all in the same place. And so it's really easy to pick up. So like all you gotta do is go and pick it up. And it's great. It's great to use. So that's why I was there. I was on the
Also
lookout.
cold, which
What's
means you
that?
can, from a fertilization perspective, it's cold, which means as soon as it comes out of their butt, put it on
Yeah.
soil and it won't burn up plants. So if you take cattle
Yes.
poop or horse poop and try to put it out into a raised bed like we showed there, it would burn the plants up. It's hot, and that's not the case. And I don't mean temperature wise. It's
Right.
got ingredients, chemicals in it
Chemical
that would
reaction, the nitrogen.
where here alpacas is not. We are alpaca. We have at one point we have the largest herd in the western United States. We've come way down in our numbers, so we're not nearly that high anymore. But I probably have now, because I'll be applying it in the near future. The most I have during the year, but I have a row of composted alpaca poop and waste hay that they don't eat. They actually, by the way that we feed, we create a compost that needs nothing else. It literally can have the alpaca pellets and all the waste that so the combination of brown and green waste is just perfect. It's probably our row that we have right now because we'll be applying it in our field within the next couple of weeks, weather dependent. 200 yards long, 20 yards wide, 20 feet tall.
Dang, that's a lot of compost.
When we get new, we put it at one end because we sell it too. We have a really good market for alpaca compost manure. And we put the new stuff at one end because we don't have time to turn it. We don't have time to move it around. So it could be much better than it is. And we apply it on about 40 acres of pasture and probably this deep in the spring. And we believe that we've taken, well, we know we have, we've taken what were not fertile at all pastures and turned them into grass mecca. And again, we've done soil looking at root pods, by the way, there's a vehicle coming by here that I didn't see it. It sounded like a four-wheeler that shouldn't be here. We live at the end of the road. We have a gate, and whenever I hear a sound and my office window looks right out to the road that loops around the property, but I didn't see that, so I don't know what it was. Boy, yeah, she's got a number of alpacas there. Anyway, alpacas make nice fertility, fertile starting point for compost. And I want to do some compost tea. So I'm going to be hiring you at some point here to help me from a consulting perspective. And we also do a number of live events here where we have teachers that come in from all over the country, sometimes the world, to teach about a whole wide variety of topics, include from all the way from running to mountain biking to every kind of regenerative agriculture you could imagine. I want to talk to you about doing a weekend kind of a seminar for us at some point. So
Yeah, I'd
we'll
love
talk
to.
about that. Well, it is almost the top of the hour. While you walk to get the book, I asked the audience to put questions in, and our audience is very shy about questions. I only have one here, so I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
Actually, it looks like I have a couple, and they're from the same person about the same topic. And I'm going to ask these. No, it was just one. I thought there was two. What is the best possible microbial population to grow mushrooms? And you've used compost tea for mushrooms, because I've seen several pictures there on your Instagram. That comes from Kim, by the way.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
the number of populations in
maybe
the
let's
soil.
go to the question that would precede it. Is there anything different you would do for a compost tea that you put on mushrooms versus one you put on a lawn or put on vegetables in raised beds?
Well, I don't apply compost tea to mushrooms specifically or mushroom substrate. Generally, when you're growing mushrooms, it's kind of a different scenario where you're really trying to limit the microorganisms, or especially the fungi. Like, this is a totally different topic, but like when you have mushroom substrate, you sterilize that substrate so that you don't have any other microorganisms, because you're wanting a specific strain of fungi to take over that substrate and then fruit to grow your mushrooms. So there is bacteria and other things that are involved with mushroom, like mycelium growth within that substrate and stuff like that, but you're more wanting to try to limit the number of things that are in there so that you're not contaminating substrate with molds or anything like that. So I can't.
You would not use a compost tea. So the answer.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
good.
That's why through that answer, that's why I was really confused on how to answer the first part of it, because I wasn't sure if they were speaking of mushroom substrate or like a soil that you're seeing mushrooms come up in. Yeah, because it's kind of two different things. So. But I have had people say after applying compost tea to their landscape, specifically landscape more than lawns, that they've had mushrooms come up that they didn't before have mushrooms that were popping up that were fruiting, that it was after the compost tea application it inoculated the soil, or possibly there was already that fungi in the soil and the interactions between microorganisms allowed the environment for it to fruit, one or the other, but it definitely had an impact. The biology from the compost tea definitely had an impact on the soil.
In these pastures that I have that have had compost put on them, absolutely I see more mushrooms now, and I see them in a wide variety of times during the year. Used to be you'd see them spring. I see them year round now, literally even into the winter when there's snow melting. I mean, right as the snow might be coming off the ground. And I, at some point, I'm going to hire an intern or bring somebody on that will go out and classify them. I haven't done that, and I know I've got lion's mane and I've got a variety of more well-known ones, but I've got a number of others too. And I didn't used to see any. Now remember, the grass was terrible too. I mean, I didn't have any, almost dead soil because it was a overgrazed cattle field. way overgrazed. When
Yeah.
I first took it on 16 years ago. And it took about 5 years before literally it got to where it was growing much of anything. And it was about that time we started to accumulate alpaca manure compost also. So that was a good timing. But gosh, absolutely, I see a lot more mushrooms. I mean, to where I didn't see any, or if I did, it was in a very narrow time frame. And now it's year round. So,
Yeah. Hopefully that means there's multiple species in there that are fruiting at various times throughout the year
Yeah.
then too.
Yeah, it is a very diverse community. So I've got multiple, I know I have multiple species. Anyway, well, we are past the top of the hour. I don't see any other questions. Arib, do you have any questions or?
All right, everybody, thank you so much. This was a presentation that we played this, we had this webinar live at one time, so you watched it replay today. Hope you enjoyed this. Wayne is at the Brownfield conference, so he'll be here. He'll be back next week. And everybody have a great rest of your day and enjoy. And thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next time.